Run Your Mouth World Headquarters.
With bird flu on the rise, we cover the growing call from scientists to put the cows in masks. Here's what the cows had to say. Moo! Next up, exclusive footage of a foreign government that functions better than ours. Next, in an effort to showcase that war is horrible, here's footage of animals affected by the Ukraine war, as if that's more important than human lives.
The entire world is seeing the depth of animal suffering.
People understand what's going on. Animals, they don't understand.
The Ukraine us as to the complexities of our obligations to animals in wartime.
No one's going to be left behind, including their pets.
Next up, Jerry Seinfeld comments on the Duke students who walked out during his commencement speech.
You know, you never have a dramatic walk-in. Lots of these people, they like me, but did they dramatically walk in? No, so you only hear about the walkouts. And then you never hear what they do after they walk out. What do? A 5K race for their cause? No, they stand around and they go, we're out. What do we do now? Some of them go, I don't know. I'd like to go back in. Go back in? How can we do that? We just walked out.
And lastly, Speaker Mike Johnson comments after attending Donald Trump's court case in New York City. Now I've read the book of the good Lord, and all the greats made a couple of hooker payments.
It's your daily dose of misinformation, pulled from a lightly hemorrhoided asshole. It's today's Run Your... What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Run Your Mouth podcast. We're here, Porch Tour. It's on, baby. This week, West Palm Beach, I think. Go look it up. Porchstore.com. Yeah, West Palm Beach, Florida. Going to be doing a stand-up show and a live podcast with Clint, and you guys have to look at these dates for the entire episode. So, you know, if you live in one of these cities and you're looking at it, just grab the ticket. Take the journey. Join us on the porch. It is a good time. And I want to, you know what? First, before we go on quite the tirade of tirades, I'd like to know, if you're a person that's gone to porchstore.com, you've clicked on a link, and for some reason you are afraid of the porches, because for some reason 600 people looked at this West Palm Beach thing, and 600 people didn't buy tickets. That means 600 people, which, by the way, we don't have capacity for 600 people on porches, so it's a good thing that 600 people didn't buy tickets. But I'm just saying, 600 people listened on part of the problem. We're like, you know what? I'd like to see what this Florida Porch Tour is all about. And then something about my link, they're like, I do not want to do this. So if you're one of those people, email me, robsnewsroom@gmail.com. I'd like to know what it was about my Eventbrite link that scared you from the porches. Because the porches, they're a peaceful place. You know, usually you got to wait on a line. You got to deal with the guy taking your ticket. You got to order your drinks. You got to do all sorts of things. Not on Porch Tour. Porch Tour, you show up with your cooler. Hell, you can do heroin in a chair and pass out. We're not going to bother you. Will someone check to make sure that you didn't overdo it and give you the narco whatever? Probably not. We leave you alone on Porch Tour. You're free to pass out on people's lawns. We got an official stick poker at the end of the night that walks around. Anyone that's passing on the lawn, you just get a little poke and you're like, hey man, porch tour's over. You're going to have to go find your own porch. We're not telling you that you can't enjoy porches. You just can't porch here anymore. Anyways, people, this Saturday night, I couldn't be more excited to actually be out journeying on Porch Tour. This is round 1 of Porch Tour. More dates coming at you. Atlanta's the only one that's not actually confirmed, but I have it up there because the guy, you know, I spoke to a guy and he said he had a porch and then he hasn't come through with the porch yet. And I'd still like to add a Boston, and then we're still going to do all the West Coast come September, October. We're going worldwide. Anyone in Europe got a porch for me and a budget to fly me out there and like 40 people that want to come to the show? All right, anyways, that's enough plugging for one episode. But guys, porchstore.com. I'm going to be... Listen, they're going to be great shows. I'm looking forward to it. I got a whole chunk on why I don't trust the healthcare system anymore and the adjustments I'm trying to make. And then there's a whole piece on that I haven't really been able to do in the clubs because it takes a little bit too far. And that's the beauty of being out on the porches. Look, and Benny the Jet, letting anyone know who's reluctant.
that Porch tour was a great time last year. Thank you. I would love to play Cincinnati. Shoot me an email, robsnewsroom@gmail.com. Cincinnati would work well with Peck in Indiana, so hit me up. Benny the Jet, the guy's porch in my town got drunk and melted the side of his house with his barbecue. That is an accurate statement. That was one of the odder sights that have happened in Porch Store. But no, listen, Porch Store is usually pretty civil, goes without any incidents. We've done like 60 of these at this point, no problems yet. But there was one guy who did get too drunk and light the side of his house on fire. But it was a very contained fire. And then we got to eat burgers that tasted like the plastic siding lining from the side of his house. That's not accurate. All right, guys, listen. I had an incident yesterday, which I just sometimes you got to reflect on yourself and your skill set and the way things are going in your own life. And sorry, I'm making all sorts of changes here to the layouts and whatnots. Wow, that is one crowded ass background. But anyways. I shattered my phone the other day. No big deal. I don't keep the thing in a case. I'm clumsy. The amount of drops that this thing went through was incredible. And it got to a point because the last time I bought an expensive phone, I accidentally threw it out into the garbage. At one point, a phone had broken. I'd had it like 4 years, and I was like, you know what? It's time for a new phone. Why don't we get the good phone? I'll use the camera on it. It's got all sorts of good features. I bought like this $1,300 brand spanking new Samsung phone. That thing was crispy. It was working well until one weekend when I decided to clean my apartment, and I threw it out in the garbage, never to be seen again. I was convinced that I was going to run into it at some point, but I never saw it again. And then after that, I don't even know where I got some old phone from, but I got some old phone. And then I was going to websites and buying the old phones so that you'd have an old phone, just like because there's nothing worse than when you don't have a phone, right? So, and then they really rape you at the store. So I was keeping a stash of old phones, like as if I was running a drug business, where every single time one of my phones dies, all you got to do is put a new card in there and you're good to go. All right, so shattered my phone the other day. I've been too lazy. I haven't ordered any old phones. And then, you know, I did every decision just seems to take me too long. Listen, I'm going to accept some of the blame because then I just want to win. And sometimes when you want to win, you start getting too finicky on the options. Where now I got to read. All right, what's the difference between the 23? What's the difference between the 24? Well, is the markup where this? And where's the battery life on this? And how quickly can these people ship it? And how long am I going to have to spend on the store on this one? And, you know, you got to like just all the mental math that exhausts you for no reason, that at some point you just got to tell yourself, hey man, just make a decision and move on. You're burning your own time. You're frustrating yourself dry. This is not that big of a decision. You're lucky not to have kids. And so these little petty expenses, because you never go out and you never do anything, it's not that big of a deal, but it doesn't matter. Maybe you people are like me. You're like, I want to research my options. I want to know everything about every different thing. And you just drive yourself nuts. And so at some point, after driving myself nuts, I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to the store. I'm just buying the new one, and I'm going to move on with my life. I don't care what it costs. I've decided that I've exhausted myself so much. Here, just take my money and make it easy. Have you ever gotten to that point where you're just like, just take it? I don't care how much you need. Just make this be over with. And so I'm going to drop, listen, after I say this next thing, some of you might not think of me the same way, and you might stop listening to the show. So you might want to skip like the next 60 seconds. You know, like some people, they heard about what Hollywood people, and they're like, I can't listen to this anymore. So for some of you, you come here for the news. I've been amazingly right. You're like, I respect this individual. And you might just want to skip like the next 60 seconds because what I say, you might not look at me the same way. My mom still pays my phone bill. There's no excuse for that. I thought all my sisters were still on my parents' phone plan. I'm not a person that gets money from their parents. I'm not a rich trust fund kid. I've been paying everything my own way. But just that phone bill's convenient. It's just convenient. They're not going to, it's just since high school, I've been on the phone bill. No one's ever said you have to get off the phone bill. I've never wanted to go into a store and have to transfer the phone. It's just one of those things you don't want to deal with it. If my mom wanted a check at the end of the year, firstly, I think getting my own thing with the doctored in account that's 26 years old, I don't think it's actually costing anybody anything. It's basically a free gift of Verizon from an old doctored in account going all the way back to high school. But the cost of being on your mom's phone plan is that sometimes you have to feel like you're 12 years old, where you're in the store, and if you're not with your mother, they won't help you. And it doesn't matter how much cards you have, doesn't matter how much cash you have on hand, how much you got in your bank account, what kind of a check. Those Verizon people, they'll make sure you feel like a child. And so I knew this because I've had this experience before. And so I had to call my mom and go, hey, mommy, I'm going to be in the phone store later. Would you mind making sure you're available to pick up a call? But this time, the Verizon store really wanted to make me feel like a child. And they're like, we don't care. We're not calling nobody. You get the authorized user into this store or you cannot have a phone. And I'm like, guys, I'm not even asking you to charge anything on the account. I'm paying for this with my money. Do you mind just selling it to me? And they're like, we can't sell it to you, but if you want to go to somewhere else and get the phone, we could put the card in. And then finally, you go to the other place, and then they give you nothing but shit. And you're like, why is everyone giving me shit? I'm actually in your store trying to spend money. When did everything become difficult? And then, so I ordered the things online in Best Buy in advance because now I'm already fed up with people. And then you think they got all the stuff in the bucket? Of course not. They got some autistic kid who's got to search all the buckets for the things that you ordered the night before just so you wouldn't have to deal with the autistic person. And you think if the autistic person was good at one thing, it would be sorting the things so that they'd actually be in the bucket that you needed. And by the way, Best Buy's not that close to me. But anyways, they're trying to sort it. They got the phone. They don't have any of the other stuff. And by the way, Samsung, you know, where's the pizzazz? Well, why am I buying $1,300 phones that come in old boxes that looks like it was a resold item and doesn't even have, it's got a shitty charging cord? That's all the pizzazz that you get these days. You buy the most high-end, newly released phone, and for all you people out there who are like, oh, Apple, use the Apple. I'm done with Apple. I'll tell you what Apple's better for, texting and driving. I will give that to Apple. Apple, if you want to sit in your car and you want to handle all your business while you're driving into the city, Apple, way better for texting and driving. If you want like a looser system where you're not kind of stuck into the iTunes and this to that, I prefer a Galaxy phone. And so anyways, you know, the Best Buy lady, and I'm just telling her, because instantly, I'm a little aggressive. I'm polite, but aggressive. Hey guys, if you don't have the other items, can you just cancel them off my order? And now they're stuck. They're like, oh, we don't know how to do that. All right, well, can you ship them to me later? But you don't know how to do that. All right, guys, well, while I'm waiting, is there someone in the store that might be able to put the SIM card in for me? You'd have to purchase that separately from the Genius people. All right, but, you know, I did just purchase it, and they're just standing there. You think maybe they could just put the card in? And then, no, we can't do that. Then you go back to the Verizon store, you try and call their bluff of being like, hey guys, you told me if I purchased the phone, you'd say, oh, we didn't say we'd set it up for you. We said we put the card in for you. And then you get the card in, and then all of a sudden there's two-factor authentication on everything. So you've got the new phone. You went through a 2-day process of replacing a simple item. And now you finally got the thing. You're just trying to turn it on. And you can't turn it on because it needs to be authenticated. And the only way to authenticate it is through the text messages that's now going to a phone that's not activated. And you're like, how did nobody think this one through? And then you got to call your mom once again and go, hey, mommy, I know it's the middle of your workday. Do you mind if I come over to the house so that you can call Verizon for me? Anyways, that's why we didn't do an episode yesterday, because I was furiously dealing with my phone. And so anyways, this was my moment of self-reflection. I was getting at something with this whole stupid phone story, is that I wonder if everything's become more difficult or if I'm just oddly retarded and angry. Because now when I stand in these stores and like I'm instantly pretty I'm polite, but internally I'm exactly the yelly person. Like, this is the voice that's going in my head. I don't say it in the store. You're not that yelly. And then it starts making me think maybe I'm just angry and then the government's not that bad. Is that the case? Am I just a crazy person? That's what I'm asking everybody. Is it just that I'm more angry about things and maybe that makes for entertainment, but really the government's fine and I'm just the guy in the store that's just angrier? I don't know. That was my thought. I'm pretty sure it's the stores though. You know what I wish? I wish that I could hire someone, like, objectively. Like, I wish the government almost had judges that you could hire, that you could just bring to you at every interaction and be like, this is their fault, right? And then maybe they could, like, write tickets. Can we have, like, corporate ticket officers? And, by the way, I'll pay for it. I'll pay $25 an hour to have some guy ride around on you and just be a life judge and go, that lady was being a bitch, right? You know, just someone to let you know you're not crazy. You're not crazy. You're not angry. This process is ridiculous. All right. It's enough of that. We do have a lot of news shows to get into. Dave Sarah at least letting me know that he loves the show. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. J8, wow, I caught 2 RYMs in a row. That's you go for 3. Go for 3. Andrew Jones, I've been trying to cancel my Verizon for over a year. I go into the store and they tell me they can't help me and I have to call the cancellation line, which never does anything but ring, ring, ring. Yeah, I've had that experience. I got a joke in my act about being in the Verizon store with broken phones. All right, anyways, that's enough of that. Let's get into some actual news. And why not start off with the facts? So the Donald Trump, the court case continues, and now you've got the Donald Trump shop quartet showing up outside. All the people auditioning to be his vice president showing up dressed like Donald Trump. Donald. This is an outrage. What they're doing is an outrage. Everyone in this country should be able to sleep with their prostitutes. We're good, honest conservatives, and if you can't make hush money payments, how dare this court bring such a prosecution, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's screaming out, how dare you. It's just a long line. The more you watch the news, the more it's somebody else screaming. It's just a circle of how dare you. So you get this person goes and does something. The other person goes, how dare they do something? How dare they report on that person doing something? And then it filters all the way to the podcasters of how dare they report on that thing. It's just a big circle jerk.
Once
people
again,
pretending like they're better at screaming at other people. How dare you? All right, can we talk about this guy on the right? I don't know who he is. Apparently he's in the running to be one of the Donald Trump vice presidents. He kind of looks like an uglier Gavin Newsom. Like if Gavin Newsom lost whatever like magical mirror keeps him youthful looking, or whatever potion the elites give him to keep him youthful looking, that if he stopped doing the bidding for them and importing homeless people and making all the policies that are ruining California, then all of a sudden he would just turn into this guy. What was that movie, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? The guy's got the mirror, and the mirror ages, or the picture ages, as long as he never sees the picture. But then if he actually sees the picture, then he ages. This is that version of Gavin Newsom. I don't know what magical potion Gavin Newsom has that keeps him youthful looking, but this is the version of him that doesn't have whatever that deal is. Anyone know who this guy is? There's no way that guy can be the VP candidate. He's like a less charming, generic white guy. In a world where everyone likes to go, the white old man, there's no way you go with a, less charismatic white old guy. There's no way. You can't, God bless if Donald Trump does that. That's the, there's just no way. I have nothing about him. I never heard the guy speak. I'm just looking at his face and going, there's no way that's going to be the VP. All right, let's talk about this portal. This was kind of cool. They put a portal in New York City. It was, maybe that's not the best way to describe it. I say portal, you think you can just walk into this and be portal to another place. Nothing that cool. They put up a giant circle. And in the circle, people in Dublin could see people in New York. People in New York could see people in Dublin. Sounds nice. Sounds interesting. Sounds like you could voyeur into another area. But we all knew it was only a matter of time before people started flashing their cocks at this. But sadly, we didn't even get to that level. Because that's what happens. Like chat roulette, you get the people with the big fat hogs going like, look at me. And people are like, whoa, look at that. And then you get some people with like little putty, disgusting ones. You're like, why are you even showing this to me? But everyone likes jerking off in front of people. I don't know why. I'm not into that. But you put cameras in front of people, that's what people like to do. But we didn't even get there. They shut it down before it got to the rods. They shut it off right when it got to... And, anything that gets more public titties going, is that really what we're going to shut things down over? People flashing in public? Things that bring people together to see tits in public, that should be a win for everybody. I feel like we didn't even have enough fun with this thing. Broadcasting, and we should just dress everyone up in tuxedos all the time. Make it look like cops are chasing people all the time. People are getting a little view into life in New York City. Let's make this thing a show. But apparently, it's already people can't have nice things. They shut down the portal because a couple people put on a free show for the good people of Ireland. Out in the Olympic Village, they're always saying that these Olympians just are fornicating like crazy. You ever read about other people's sex lives in the news and you're like, what am I doing wrong? It's like everyone's in a relationship that's non-monogamous, having sex with 14 other people. You get hot school teachers that are having sex with kids. You get these why? And you're like, what planet am I living on that none of this seems to be going on? Everywhere I go, everyone seems to be a bunch of prudes, and everyone else, you're like, I don't know. What happens at the Olympic Village? People just walk around and they're like, you got the nicest body I've ever seen. They're like, well, look at you. Oh, you're a pole vaulter. I'm a swimmer. And so now they're trying to put these shitty beds in, so I guess that they can't fornicate, and what we should be doing is removing the condoms and forcing these people to breed. You've got the best specimens amongst humanity. Maybe this is the way to stay ahead of the robots and have a more peaceful planet, is when you get the swimmers from America mating with the pole vaulters from Russia. Maybe you mix in some of the Nigerian runners. I feel like let these orgies happen. Just don't let them... just try and incentivize the people to maybe actually get pregnant and have super breeded hybrid babies amongst the different cultures of the earth. And let's see how that plays out. That's how we stay ahead of the robots. You guys are trying to put shitty beds in there? How are you supposed to compete on shitty beds? You know, I only have to tell some jokes for an hour in the evening. If you put me in a room like that with a roommate, some other guy who's been taking protein powder all day, all shredded, everything he eats is instant giant logs of turds. That's no way to live. All right. I'd love to have someone on from the Epoch Times or somebody that reads the Epoch Times. Every headline I see from Zero Hedge quoted on Epoch Times, I've talked about this before on the show, they seem to have the most fascinating and out there stories. Their articles are very long-winded, which make them not particularly easy reads, but it's also a publication. The second I see Epoch, I'm like, I'm not reading this. Now, is that fair of me? I can't say that it is. I have no idea as to how credible or not credible the Epoch Times is. It's just never been a source that I've pulled from, and I would happily have anybody on the show who knows more about the Epoch Times and as to whether or not it's a credible news organization. But I did see this article, and there's no way this is true, but they were claiming that 1 in 8 American adults have used popular weight loss and diabetes drugs known as GLP-1 agonists, according to the latest KFF health tracking poll, claiming that 1 in every 8 adult has taken Ozempic. And I hear that it's like, dude, I got to get over the cake and sugar, because if everyone who is like way fatter than us starts becoming skinny, then all of a sudden, like the chubby people in the middle, we look like we're the dickwads with no self-control. At least fatter people were running good cover for us, where you're like, wait, I'm not that guy, you know? And so we need that guy. We need the guy with no self-control, so that at least if you got, you know, a little bit, like you're a little bit past like dad bod, like you got some titty meat on you, but you're not that guy. We need that guy. You know what I'm saying? Like I got some, I know some people, you know, that they're on the Ozempics and they're starting to almost get to like my size. And I'm like, fuck, you know how much pressure this puts on me now? It's like when you were a giant, big, fat slob, by comparison, it's like, well, this guy's doing pretty good. But now you got all, if 1 in 8 people in the country are on Ozempic, I'm telling you, all the people like us that are like medium, like okay-ish, we're all going to have to step up our game, which kind of sucks. All right, next topic. We got some real news coming at you. We've got, you know, they did a painting of the I guess the King of England, and if you ask me, they barely captured this guy's sausage fingers. I mean, barely. And what like at least do it red. You know, I wish this was old school times where the guy could undo the curtain, look at that painting, and go off with the head. Who the fuck painted me this way? But of course, he must have seen this thing beforehand. There's no way when he unveiled it, that was the first unveiling. That means he picked the artist. He told the guy what he was looking for. And that's the way I work it with my guy. Go follow LVMP. You know, I give him little mock-ups. I tell him what I'm looking for. He takes my stupid little sketch paintings of nonsense and he gives me nice golden text. Just wait till you see this full tour poster. And I got another one that looks really great. And then another one coming after that. Porchtour.com. Come hang out. Anyways, people were looking at this one. They're like, you put it side by side, upside down. If you play it backwards, it's nothing but demons. I don't know. It's just doesn't look like a great painting to me. And then you got to wonder what's wrong with these people when you got all the money in the world and you're trying to make some grand. Firstly, it's already weird to commission a painting of yourself. As a guy who just made tour posters that includes pictures of myself, I'm still going to criticize other people doing the exact same thing. making pictures of yourself to promote yourself. Is he on tour? I mean, you put some tour dates on the bottom of that, then all of a sudden I'll give him props. I'll go, all right, you're trying to get creative on tour posters. All right, moving on. I've got real news here. This was the latest from the Donald Trump court case. I found this one amusing. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Cohen, the former president's loyalist turned nemesis, is flawed but critical witness. He is the only person likely to provide direct evidence that Trump himself ordered a cover-up of a payment to Daniels. He also pleaded guilty in 2018 to 9 federal crimes, including 2 that he... Oh, I might have misread this the first time. Because when I read this the first time, it still sounded like evidence of a non-crime. In that if you sit down with your lawyer and you go, listen, I'd like to carry out this legal activity of a hush money payment, and I'm paying you as my legal advisor to legally get this payment done, and then the lawyer does it in an illegal way, I would say that's the fault of the lawyer. In fact, maybe that's malpractice. I don't know what it is. But if you literally sit down with the guy who's supposed to be able to tell you how to do something legally, and he tells you, all right, I'm getting this done, and it can be done, and then he does it the wrong way, I would say that that's on him. I guess maybe I'd misread this because I was just reading this again as it sounds like, yeah, he had a conversation with his lawyer on the payment. I guess, though, the only person likely to provide direct evidence that Trump himself ordered a cover-up of a payment to Daniels, which I guess maybe the cover-up of a payment is the crime, but I'm still not quite sure what the crime is. All right. Next up, what do we got? Ooh, here's a fun one. All right, before we get into the fun one, YoKratom.com, home of the $60 kilo. If you're trying to get Porch tour dates put together and graphics, and you got to do all the work that you hate doing late at night, that's why I get you can get whole kilos of this stuff. You want a whole kilo? You can get yourself a whole kilo. I like to go a little bit lighter. I don't want to be mixing up potions and teas. You feel like too much of a drug addict. But one little pill in a bag. YoKratom.com, home of the $60 kilo. All right, we've got Donald Trump. We got Joe Biden throwing down the debate gauntlet. Guys, I might have gotten this one wrong. I said bet I'm boring. So far, that kind of seems to be true with the Donald Trump court cases. But I also said I didn't think Biden was going to debate. No way, no how. And now here he is. He's throwing down the debate gauntlet. Why don't we listen, and then I can give some commentary.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
Firstly, I like it when he goes full Clint Eastwood. Make my day, punk. What are you gonna do? Anyways, throwing down the debate gauntlet. Firstly, I don't know why they can't film this guy with 2 camera angles to make the cuts less apparent. How is this guy going to get through a debate? Did they finally figure out the drugs? Did they figure it out? Someone in a lab like Frankenstein, when you pull that lever and the electricity goes in, they're like, I can give you an hour. I can give you an hour. Just make sure there's not an audience. Make sure there's not an audience, and make sure that he can't overtalk him too much, because that might throw off the chip I'm throwing in this guy's brain. But you give me an hour. Like they put the fake pig kidney into a dude. That got the guy a month. They did the Neuralink thing. That gave the guy some time. Maybe they got a chip in this guy's brain, and he's good for 1 hour. 1 hour only. Or maybe he's so far behind in the polls and he's losing in every swing state, they realize he's got no choice but to get out there and debate. Or maybe they're throwing him up there 2 debates that they can finally recall him and go, look, you blew it, buddy. You blew it clean and square, and they're going to replace him with somebody else. I thought, no way, no how. I mean, listen, there aren't too many things that I've got him wrong on this show. And I said I thought they were going to do everything they could to not put him up in front of a live audience, and that they were going to play the card of shame Donald Trump. We can't even be in the same room as him, and that they would see if they could get away with that. But nope, here he is. Come on, punk. You want to talk ideas? I'll talk ideas with you. Let's put him up and boogie. Well, we'll see how that goes. So the conditions weren't even that crazy. I believe for some reason they're getting rid of the typical commission for it. I'm sure that they're moving it sooner to maybe try and make sure that RFK Jr. can't pull in a way that he can be in. Maybe that's part of the maneuvering. I don't quite understand it. I'm not also 100% clear on the earlier detail, but I seem to have read that, and sometimes random details stick in my brain. But anyways, the big one is no live audience and turning off the mics when the other person's talking. Doesn't seem that bad. Actually, the turning off the mics while the other people are talking, I would think would favor Trump, because that means he can't overtalk Biden, and Biden has to actually finish his sentences, or at least become apparent that he's incapable of doing so. Now, I believe that both of these debates will be on liberal networks, so I'm sure there'll be some buffoonery of questions beforehand, the questions that are being asked and whatnot, but this is a surprising turn of events that Joe Biden's throwing down the gauntlet of let's boogie Trump, and of course Trump accepted. All right, let's take some comments. Maddie, what's up, Maddie? I think they're just trying to debate early to keep RFK out. You see, I hadn't even thought about that until I was just talking out loud, and I said it, and I guess we're all feeling that energy. Biden looks like he's struggling to push one out on the toilet. That's a fair point. Jay Nate, it only took 5 edits for that 15 seconds. Yeah, and the cuts are obvious. Do they not have a good enough team to film from 2 camera angles and make it look like it's all in one take, as opposed to the cheap little zoom in trick? That's what you do when you're too cheap to bring a second camera. Alabama Mises Caucus. Biden tells CNN, take it easy on me. Let's make this a fair debate. All right. David Allen, Cohen's former lawyer, says he's committed perjury. Cohen set up the payments with the loan money that later went to Trump. Big Biz, I don't get the free on Wednesday joke. What did I miss? I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. Michael, they use the IA language mallet to come up with Biden's responses. All right, guys, sheathunderwear.com. We'll make this a quick one. Greatest underwear that's ever graced the balls of man. You're not going to get through summer without Sheath. Go to sheathunderwear.com. Support our loyal sponsor. Use promo code RYM. You get 20% off the greatest underwear that's ever graced the balls of man. What do we got next? Half of RFK Jr. supporters say they're mainly just voting against Trump and Biden poll. This article just aggravated me. All right, this is from the Daily Beast. Yeah, you want to talk about things that aren't worth reading? Liberal nonsense. But I don't know. I came across the headline, and it just, in most elections, most people are just voting against somebody. And I've said it before, don't vote, make them earn your vote, because they got to put together winning coalitions. This time Biden's contending with that. That's why he's got to get rid of student loans. He's got to try and win over the kids. In some ways, that's democracy functioning. Where, listen, you're going to have to bribe me for my vote, or I'm not going to show up and vote. And you know what happens if you just vote against somebody else? You never get represented. You never get your bribe. You never get your thing coming. Like, if I could get the coalition of people that wanted more clean bathrooms, the coalition of people that, just don't want CBDCs, the coalition of people that want, whatever your thing is, if nobody's representing that thing, and then you just vote against the other guy, then they never go, oh, it's important to front this thing. And so I've argued, hey, don't vote. I'm not sure I feel that way in this election, just because some of the anti-free speech, green energy initiatives, wars, CBDCs, and other nonsense from the Democrats, I think is so scary that, I might actually change my tune and just be like, just vote against people. But that was always my attitude, was don't just vote against people. And that in this country, the reason why the machine gets to just march on is because people are, typically speaking, just voting against somebody. And so their values are never actually being represented. And then they do that thing, oh, well, it's just important to vote. It's the apathy of not voting and whatever their nonsense is. But now all of a sudden, they never really call attention to, I'm just saying, in most elections, how much of the country even votes, and then how many people are actually enthusiastic about who they're voting for versus just voting against the other person. And then you start realizing how many people actually want the person who's the president. What does the number come down to? 20 million of the 350 million? I'm just saying, what did someone in the chat, you can look this up. You guys are the producers of the show. What did Biden win with? 80 million votes last time? And you could probably assume half of those people were just voting against Trump. So I guess 40 million people, and like a bell curve of the 40 million people, the 40 million were probably okay with Biden. So maybe 20 million of them actually really like Biden, if even. So anyways, I don't know. The fact that they're trying to present this like this is a new phenomenon that, oh, no one likes this RFK guy. Nobody likes him. They're just voting against the other guy. Yeah, everyone's just voting against the other guy. That's the way the system works. All right. And then last topic for today. I think can't speak for part of the problem. Seems to be the hot topic. Seems to be where we're going to have continuing coverage of what's going on over in the Middle East. For this show, I mean, I say that by next week. By tomorrow, I'm going to see some new article. I'll be like, we got to comment on that. But, all right, I got a couple of thoughts here. First is, I think the reason, like, at this point, we've already said, they shouldn't be killing civilians. That their whole way of evilly manipulating the situation so that these people are stuck in those situations, they can't get their statehood, not contending with the reality, trying to keep these people in the harsh conditions. It's all bad, and the way that they're currently doing their operations and seemingly recklessly killing civilians and civilian infrastructure, I've spoken out against, and I'm still against it. At this point, it seems like now. Morally, it's bad. Now, for, politically, let's see if they end up winning. Do they end up actually taking out Hamas? And in 100 years from now, does this mean that the state of Israel continues to exist? On a similar vein, I once was having a conversation with Noam from the Comedy Cellar. I did his podcast live from America, and I was saying, listen, I think that firstly, I was like, I think the war is immoral, the Russia-Ukraine thing, that we're back in Ukraine. I think Ukrainians are just needlessly dying. But I was like, I guess if for some reason this became so costly for Russia that the Russian elites or the Wagner Group or someone else were to replace Putin, and we ended up with someone over there who was actually just our guy and more favorable to the West, I wouldn't agree with it morally, but I would go strategically. I guess the deep state has a win there. They put up a win. You guys see what I'm saying? I'm not saying I would do it. I'm not saying I would make that bet, or I'm not saying that it would be a moral call, but I would at least say strategically, if you're amoral, I guess you advanced your own interest. So at this point, I'm almost more curious, which maybe even that sounds like that's evil. That I'm like, it's an intellectual exercise. Who cares about the morality? No, I'm saying at this point, I feel like I've spoken out enough against it. And it's like kind of, let's see if strategically they were even right in their ability to remove Hamas and what this looks like down the road. I did, however, have a hippie thought in terms of like how we get closer to peace. And just, I'm almost thinking world leaders, if they become world leaders, they need more skin in the game. It's like, it's always, it seems like even with the way we treat maybe that's not the best example. It seems like wars are always fought with us, civilians, and the world, it's cheap. It's not expensive for world leaders to make decisions that affect common civilians. So I almost feel like if you become world leaders, you take over governments, the way that we reduce warfare is by figuring out how to make it so that the elites actually have skin in the game. Because I think that's what ends these skirmishes. I think I've said this on the show, and maybe I should actually read books instead of watching random fictional things on television going, hey, that's how you solve problems. But there was once this episode of Homeland, which was a great show if you never watched it, and they're trying to get something done in Russia, and they can't get it done, and then they finally seize all the wealth of this one general. And the general's like, well, fuck that. And then he goes, the general gets done what they need to get done because they actually had the guy by the balls. And guess what? These people, they don't care about the civilians. So you got to figure out, how do you take out the leadership? How do you get your SEAL Team Sniper 6 and you start going after all the people that actually get the money to the Hamas organization, which includes not sending it directly to them? But how do you actually snipe out the world leaders? Or how do we maybe live in a world? I know this is too extreme, so I'll lessen it. But it's almost like if you become like world leader, it's like instead of everyone else being on the board with all the soldiers and this and the that, it's like, oh, no. All right, yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. The big thing, I think, when it comes to peace agreements is there's always the fear that, I think I had this clear in my head when I was going to talk about it on the last episode. But anyways, let's continue. We're going with it. We're pulling information out of our ass and we're ranting. So fuck it. Let's go. I think there's always fear with peace deals of that the other side is going to cheat or that the other side is going to be aggressive. And so I think what countries should start doing is you come to your terms, and then world leaders, the people that actually signed on the documents, instead of the civilians being at stake that they have to go fight, let's just put exploding collars on these people's necks. And if one of them violates the agreements, we explode the collar. And now I know you got problems of who gets to decide how to explode the collars. How do you, because everyone always pretends like the other one's being the more aggressive one and they're the one cheating. Fine. Maybe we got to work out that detail. And maybe exploding collars is a little bit too extreme. Maybe that's too extreme. So maybe we make people put up their entire financial assets. Maybe they got to fill a furnace with their money and we burn it if they cheat on the agreements. I'm just trying to say that conceptually, the whole thing of us having to fight on these people's behalves just prolongs the problems, because the amount of time and damages it takes before it actually affects them. Like at some point they're like, oh my God, I so many people have died that people are starting to turn on me that I can't continue. It's like, it's not the morality of the death. It's that at some point it actually starts to affect them, because they're like, I might not be able to be in charge anymore because people are affected by the death. And so if the skirmishes are finally finished on the point where it's actually painful to the elites, well, then how do we just bypass that part and figure out how to just make it painful to the elites sooner, so that we don't have to all, and I say collectively, let's stand on the just side of civilians and humanity and just go, well, like, how do we rewrite these rules? You want to be the leaders? You want all the benefits that come with the leaders? So, you know, if you guys need more skin in the game, if you're going to be putting us into these messes, and you guys should be forced to go out there and make peace treaties, but things that actually your personal stakes are what go first before it's soldiers and war. I don't know. A little bit of a thought I was playing around with. Here was some random videos. I don't remember what the hell this was about. Let's see what Schumer had to say.
Secondly, I had a chance to talk to the defense minister of Israel yesterday and Jake Sullivan this morning, and I continue to express my concern to the administration that the delay of shipment of weapons to Israel is just another way of trying to tell an ally how to conduct the war. This is obviously an extremely challenging situation, but I think the last thing we ought to be doing.
Well, if you're paying for it, shouldn't you be able to, have your input? Why do you both have to pay for it? And then also, all right, guys, this is total ADD. Total ADD here. But also, the other thing I was thinking about when it comes to Israel is, what about this, has kids so riled up? Because then you just start to think, like, what is it about this tragedy in the world versus all the other tragedy in the worlds that people seem to be more worked up about this one, or that it's more in our focus? And then at some point, I get that this is a whataboutism, but if you look at all the tragedies in the world and you're just focused on this one, like, are you fixing things, or are you just bashing one single group? And I think, just from a persuasion standpoint, imagine if at the beginning of COVID, the elites did not have control of the internet, and like Facebook groups of people that were being vaccine injured weren't being taken off the internet. And even, let's just say that the vaccines were good. Let's just say that the vaccines were good. But let's say that there was a freak occurrence, a statistical anomaly, and in the first batch of the vaccines that they put out, your Johnson & Johnsons, before they removed that off the market, there was really horrifying footage of people that had been injured. And even though statistically it was small, you were being confronted with that information, how much do you think they would have been able to sell us on that vaccine protocol? We're all stupid. It's the Jaws phenomenon. People see the movie Jaws. There's not any increase in shark attacks, but all of a sudden they're more aware of it, and so they're more afraid of the water. Last summer, I wasn't afraid of the water. There aren't any more shark attacks. I'm not looking at the information on shark attacks, but I'm seeing something, and the more you see something, the more you think that it's true. That's where news has a significant influence over our lives, in their ability to constantly repeat stories and make things seem like they are bigger, worser, more apparent, blah, blah, blah. That's why even I, at the beginning of COVID, you're all afraid. Or when I got COVID, you're like, oh my God, am I going to die? It's because it doesn't matter what the numbers are. Literally, it doesn't matter what the numbers are. You could tell me that COVID is the exact same thing as a cold. But when I have 7 months of people telling me I'm going to die, it doesn't matter how many times I've looked at that statistic, you get sick with the thing and you're like, oh shit, am I going to die? And you don't think that with the cold. You don't think that with the flu, or like if you just repeat something enough, it kind of seems like I'm just saying the numbers and statistics are not going to override your emotional feeling over what people have thrown in your face a whole bunch. And so I think the reason why the Israel thing is playing so poorly to the general public, and why even for the state it was probably a strategic blunder, because I think long term they're going to lose quite a bit of support. And once again, it's also just immoral. Is I think that they were not able to control social media to remove clear images of obviously civilians being caught in this skirmish, and Israel not being the most moral and doing everything it could to prevent it. And Romney actually said the quiet part out loud. Hopefully I have this because this was from Counterpoints was talking about it, but I think I found the actual raw clip. So let's give this a listen and close out the show. Oh, is this taken off the internet? Oh, I just froze?
I mean, as you said, why?
Let's give it a second. It seems like I froze there for a second. So let's give it a second for the computer to reset and for let this load up a little bit, because we're at the end of the episode and I didn't record locally. So let's say you comment too much on particular topics and they start shutting down your internet.
Why has Hamas disappeared in terms of public perception? An offer is on the table to have a ceasefire, and yet the world is screaming about Israel. It's like, why aren't they screaming about Hamas? Accept the ceasefire, bring home the hostages. It said it's all the other way around. Typically the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating the realities there and our point of view?
How this narrative has evolved. Yeah, it's a great question. I don't have a good answer to that. One can speculate about what some of the causes might be. I don't know. I can tell you this. We were talking about this a little bit over dinner with Cindy. I think in my time in Washington, which is a little bit over 30 years, the single biggest change has been in the information environment. And when I started out in the early 1990s, everyone did the same thing. You woke up in the morning, you opened the door of your apartment, your house, you picked up a hard copy of the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal. And then if you had a television in your office, you turned it on at 6:30 or 7 o'clock and watched the national network news. Now, of course, we are on an intravenous feed of information with new impulses, inputs every millisecond.
I think we're getting
and of course, the way this is played out on social media has dominated the narrative. And you have a social media ecosystem.
Just to, by the way, keep this in focus, they're currently at the McCain Institute talking about how they can't as easily run propaganda on the general population because social media puts out information that's not them just controlling the official narrative. And so people are more aware of perspectives or even truths that they would rather people not be aware of. And then I think it's coming. Hopefully I pulled the right clip here, but Romney says that's exactly why we had to get rid of TikTok.
System environment in which context, history, facts get lost, and the emotion, the impact of images dominates. And we can't discount that. But I think it also has a very, very, very challenging effect on the narrative.
Yeah, a small parenthetical point, which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcasts. So I'd note that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
There you go. Our algorithm let us know that on TikTok there were too many mentions of the Palestinian civilians amidst the content there, and so we had to shut it down for that purpose. All right, I think I might have had one more. Did I have one more? Or is that our episode? That might be our episode. Hang on, everybody. Let's find out together. Ooh, one more. Let's keep this for the leftover show. I don't know. What are you guys feeling? We're at 50 minutes. I'll try and do an hour. All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Everyone. No, but this one's dense. It's a little bit dense. A little bit dense. It's about preventing bailouts, which I didn't think, whatever. We all understand the Fed and preventing bailouts. I thought what was more interesting in this was some of the particular maneuvers that the Fed has done, I guess, to finance its own debt, which always starts seeming screwy to me when they're trying to buy up more of their own to keep the interest rate down and what they have to pay to pretend like there's more demand for their debt than there is. But that's for another time. We've yelled about enough topics. Let's take a couple comments, but before we do, guys, those are the dates. Porchstore.com. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to make that the background for a while. Let everyone see the dates. Commit to a porch. Come to a porch near you. All right, let's take some comments. Let's go up. Let's see what was going on. RFK Jr. got his brainworm from eating butt. Is that a real thing? Do you got to be careful eating ass because you might get brainworms? DeBeard007. The Fed saw RFK on Matt and Shane and knew they had a problem. I got to go watch that. I watched the one little clip where someone sent it to me where he talked about Dave Smith and the Israel thing. I was curious if that might make for a good show topic. But I got to go watch that whole episode. Why couldn't the brainworms and RFK just coexist peacefully? You bring up a good point. If we vote Biden in, they'll see how horrible he is and Trump is barely better. Vote to accelerate the uprise. I don't know. Okay. Matt is a retard, LOL. I can't believe neither of them has ever voted. What the fuck? Mitt saying more info is worse is him saying that Rabbi is too stupid to think critically and has no decrement. And then someone just saying, shit, I'm probably riddled. Okay, guys, that is the show. Thanks for hanging out. SummerPorchStore.com. Get yourself some tickets. Come hang out on the porches. I'm still looking for an Atlanta. I thought I had an Atlanta. The guy even said he had a nice pool. He had a nice pitch. Had a nice porch. I think that one is the only one up here that doesn't yet have a date, and I'd still like to get Boston in. I think, all right, guys, that's it. I got nothing else to say. We did a whole episode. Enjoy yourself. Have a nice day.